Southeast Texas Weekly continues with the Congressional District 14 race, which has become hot and heavy in the last few weeks. Of course, we have a primary coming up May 29th. There are a great many Republicans in this particular race, so the primary is going to be key in that. And then, of course, the general election is always critical. In one of the candidates with a special interest in that May 29th race, John Gay joining us. John Gay for Congress, coming here today to spend a little time with us. And Zach Grady, you're the Republican, you're the Libertarian in the race. Zach Grady here to speak with us as well. Thanks for coming over.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you guys very much, because this is key for our viewers to be able to get an idea of where you stand on some of these key issues.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'll begin over here with just an idea, your basic platform. Tell me if there was a central elevator speech that you had to give, where you could, by the time you made it to the third floor, explain why you should be our next congressman. What would it be?
Well, I like to consider myself a Ron Paul libertarian. We got a 12-term congressman here who has stuck to the Constitution. He's kind of been a thorn in the side of what they call the establishment, and I'd like to continue that, as well as keeping the spotlight on the Federal Reserve and keeping Ben Bernanke before Congress and asking him the tough questions.
Do you believe in the elimination of the Federal Reserve?
I think it should be dialed back and eventually phased out, but it would have to be something that happened over a long period of time because of how entwined it is in the entire world and in our financial system.
Do you believe in the legalization of marijuana?
I believe that it's a liberty issue, like a personal freedom choice. It's kind of a tough decision. It would help. If you decriminalize, I think it would help a lot with the border violence, as well as the money that they spend on the failure known as the drug war.
Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe, are you pro-choice? Are you pro-life?
I'm pro-life, yeah. A lot of libertarians, they, fall into that it's a choice of kind of a privacy issue. I think a bit more of the baby has a right to life. So yeah.
Okay, we'll come back in just a moment. Mr. Gay, you have announced for this race, and you've been running in an energized way all across the district. We've seen you in several of the debates already so far that we've had. You have mentioned that you prayed with other staff members as a school administrator. You prayed with staffers. What is the role of prayer in public schools? Should it be, the rule of the land? And tell us your overall views on it.
Prayer is something that's individual, that God requires us to communicate with Him. So it is up to the individual. It's not for the government to decide when or if or when we do not pray. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law with respect to establishment of religion or prohibit the free exercise thereof. But everybody stops and calls it the Establishment Clause, but as far as I'm concerned, it's the Prohibition Clause. You cannot prohibit me from having faith or expressing my faith wherever I am in the marketplace.
So by way of separation of church and state, how do you even see that issue? Has that been contorted?
It is. Separation of church and state is nowhere to be found in the Constitution. It was in a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to some Baptists, and has been totally taken out of context. And so, the freedom of religion is our first, most basic freedom. And we call the first 10 amendments the Bill of Rights. But actually, if you read the preamble of the, quote, Bill of Rights, it says that these are restrictions on the government, which is what President Obama does not like about him. He says it's a negative charter that tells the government what they can't do to you rather than what they can do for you. And he wants to make it positive and tell what the government can do to you.
Having heard you speak many times, you're a proud U.S. veteran of wars. Are we right to have been in the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War?
I feel like without a clear mission, you don't send troops into harm's way. It is a very big sacrifice for troops and their families to go into harm's way and to risk their life and limb, which so many of them have come back wounded. A war should be very clearly defined with a very clear mission, and it should not be Meals on Wheels. If we're going to declare war, the Congress should be declaring it, not like Leon Panetta and some of the generals recently said, we'll come back and let Congress know if we start a war, and they were going to get their authority from the United Nations or NATO.
Yes or no, my friend? Were we right to be in Iraq and Afghanistan?
If we were, we've passed that point.
Okay.
We're way past that point.
Do you believe in the elimination, or do you believe in a in changes, dramatic changes to the minimum wage, Mr. Grady?
I think the minimum wage is unconstitutional and that it's a burden on small business, because some jobs, even though the minimum wage is adjusted for inflation, I think some jobs don't merit $7.50 an hour, $7.25 an hour. Like, for instance, when I was 16, I washed dishes in a Mexican food restaurant for $3.25, and minimum wage at that time was $5.25. But there was less than 50 employees, so they had an allowance. But I don't think that it should be imposed upon people, because yeah, some jobs don't merit that much. You don't get the return on investment.
Better men than I have tried and failed at immigration reforms. You have a plan. What is it?
I do. You know, we're told that our military is not big enough to round up all the illegal aliens. And I don't think the American public has the heart to just round up people and send them packing. So I think we ought to have a guest register type program where we register those that are here illegally as a guest if they have not committed other crimes, and they are never allowed to become citizens except for two exemptions. One, if they self-deport and return to their homeland and come back through legal means, or two, they serve honorably for 4 years in the military or are wounded in battle, not just a paper cut, but they're actually wounded in battle, then they have earned a right to be an American citizen. But our citizenship is one of the most valuable things that we have.
Both of you, it is an honor to be in your presence, to be candidates in this fantastic race. We appreciate your service to the nation in being candidates in this race, and thank you for coming by and giving us some of your time today. John Gay for Congress, Zach Grady for Congress.
Thanks.
We're back with more spirited debate, as we've said, virtually effortless, from three more of our all-stars, Jeff Lewis, Godfrey Leggett, and James Shannon, right after this.